You're listening to ayahuascapodcast.com.
Ayahuasca is the most powerful herbal medicine on planet Earth. It penetrates the liver, the gallbladder, the intestines. It cleans the blood, but more importantly, it penetrates the nervous system where we hold our beliefs. So if you were raped as a child, or you were wronged or ripped off, etc., ayahuasca has the ability to pull this program out and help you really look at it. And so ayahuasca is a tool that has the ability, and sometimes you're going to puke it out. Sometimes you're going to shit it out. Sometimes a good shaman can smooth it out, right? Blow some tobacco on it and help clear the energy. There are only 4 human needs: food, water, shelter, and fire. And we don't need chemicals to grow food. Organics outperform GMOs and commercial farming, I think 8-1. The organics outperform, and there's a huge difference in energetics in the world of biohacking and now peptides and steroids and all these synthetics that are out there. People are getting caught up on like, oh, should I do this or should I do that? And my message has always been for the last 20 years, get back to nature in as many facets as possible.
Hi guys, and welcome to Ayahuasca Podcast. As always, we do the host, Sam Believ. Today I'm having a conversation with Troy Casey, also known as Certified Health Nut. Troy is a holistic health coach, author, and a former Versace model who turned his life around through natural healing and consciousness practices. With decades of experience in wellness, he promotes lifestyle rooted in breathwork, nutrition, emotional healing, and earth-based wisdom. He's known for his bold personality, raw authenticity, and viral content on men's work and personal transformation. His book, Ripped at 50, explores his journey of healing, masculinity, and purpose. This episode is sponsored by Lawira Ayahuasca Retreat. At Lawira, we combine affordability, accessibility, and authenticity. Lawira, connect, heal, grow. Guys, I'm looking forward to hosting you. Casey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sam. I'm always delighted to talk about medicine.
Casey, so I've first seen your content maybe 6-7 years ago. I think I was looking up for like breathing exercises, so I kind of know your face. I was surprised to find out you were actually one of the OG people that talk about ayahuasca. That was new to me. So it's like I found a video of you like 18 years ago in the jungle. So that's pretty cool. Tell us about your story. You know, how did you go from Versace model to being a health nut, and what's the role medicine played in it?
Yeah, so I put a lot of this in my book. I started out as a young man, kind of just chasing money, not really knowing where I was going or what I was doing, and the fashion industry and being a high fashion model sounded like a good idea. I didn't know much about it. Now, 30 something years later, we see the whole Diddy party situation, right? And a lot of people have been implicated in the Epstein list. There was a guy who owned the agency in Paris called Models One. And then you get the Abercrombie and Fitch and Victoria's Secret. They were kind of all intertwined with that whole Epstein Diddy party thing. And that was something that kind of ate away at my soul. You could only like go so far in that industry. And I maneuvered my way into becoming a Versace model. I was at the right place, the right time in Miami when Miami was coming up. And so my agent helped Gianni Versace purchase that property on Ocean Drive, and then had him use Miami as a backdrop for the South Beach Stories campaign, and so I was able to really maneuver my way in there. And then the next year there was a big agent from New York that came down, and they were looking through my book, and they came up on all the Versace stuff, and he was like, "Oh, this is so last year." I was just like, dude, that's the height of fashion, right? Versace, Armani, Gucci, stuff like that is like the height of fashion, especially men's fashion. And for someone to gatekeep me and say it was like, so last year, it was so soul robbing, for me. And so it took me a little while to wake up, in that scenario. And I partied a lot. Drugs and alcohol were a big part of that scene. And so instead of feeling my emotions at that level of my development, I would just go out and drink and party. And that went on for quite a few years. And then eventually I had to sober up. I was wasting my potential. And enough people bothered to tell me that, right? So anybody who has alcoholic friends out there or drug addicted friends, always encourage them to live their full potential, because eventually I listened to that and I started to sober up, and it was Vipassana meditation that really took me to the next level. I went to AA and 12-step programs, which, were functional and dysfunctional all in the same. But the one thing that really stuck with me was step 11, sought through prayer and meditation. You found a better way. And I always noticed that the people that would talk about that, they had a certain je ne sais quoi, a certain way of being, and I really respected that. And so I was intrigued about meditation, and I inquired, and I heard about these meditation retreats, etc. And I found out about Vipassana, and this is before the internet. I put in my application, and I got some literature back, and I was reading the literature about the depth of the mental defilements and where the root cause of a lot of our suffering is. And I was in tears, reading about that. And so I sat many Vipassana courses over the span of 6 years, and that helped me awaken. And at the same time, I started studying with indigenous Maori healers from New Zealand and got a real taste of indigenous wisdom and how powerful shamanic healing was. They used the body, right? And they would, stand on the nerve centers of the body and go really deep, really fast, and kind of used pain or the release of your pain as a catalyst for awakening. Had some very profound experiences, witnessed many miracles myself during that time. And at the same time, somebody turned me on to an herbal company in the Amazon rainforest. They had the top 40 plants: dragon's blood, unyidagato, chuchuwasi, jataba, suma, chancapiedra, really powerful herbal medicine from the Amazon. And I started putting these herbs into my body. And I had started studying herbal medicine as a model because I got into fasting, internal purification, cleaning out my liver, etc. And so I had an affinity towards herbs for a very long time. And so fast forward 15 years later, somebody introduced me to an herbal company from the Amazon. I started taking these plants, and the vibration of the plants and my experience with them was extremely profound. And so I started working with that company and building a business with their herbs. And I won a trip to the Amazon, and the vendors for that company were the Shipibo Indians. And so I went far upriver and met some of our partners, researched the plants. A lot of this you can see on my YouTube channel from 2006. This was some of my first work in YouTube. And I've had a career in front of the camera. I want to kind of tie it all together. And so I've been in front of the camera for 35 years, and it's been this whole journey of discovery of who I am and what we're doing on this planet, and ultimately to heal myself, and to, now share that information with others. And so I drank the ayahuasca for the first time with the Shipibo down there, and then I stayed there for a few extra weeks and had profound experiences and profound visions. And I've been living those visions ever since. And what you see on the internet is an expression of those visions.
So you talk about those 3 powerful visions that ayahuasca gave you. Can you share?
So the first one was an amalgamation of my on-camera career. I was doing stand-up comedy at the time in Hollywood, and I'd been studying natural medicine as long as I've been in front of the camera. And so the certified health nut came to me. It was crystallized in the Amazon. And so I laughed out loud right in the middle of the ceremony. That's been unfolding for the past almost 20 years. When I got out of the jungle, YouTube was a brand new reality. And mind you, when I first moved to Hollywood, transitioning from a model to an actor, you had to beg for a piece of film from a USC student or something like that. And it was very expensive to get film equipment and do filming. And so in a very short amount of time, these iPhones, iMacs, editing software, this phone right here is as good as any Panavision camera that came out of a truck that cost $70,000 to rent for one day. And so this iPhone has that much power in it, right? This is 20 years later. And so, and then the distribution platforms, YouTube, and now, of course, Instagram and other platforms. But the bottom line is when I first moved to Hollywood, the distribution platforms were network television and films. And now I'm my own movie producer. I produce my own materials. In fact, I'm working with a famous director and producer. He's a friend of mine, and he's been following my work for a long time. He said 20 years ago when we met, I was going to take him down to the Amazon to drink ayahuasca. And he looked at my career, and basically what he said is the technology didn't catch up to me. It's only catching up to me now. He just produced and directed the film for Cheech and Chong, and he won the Academy Award for Sling Blade back in 1996. And he did another movie with Jim Carrey called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And so I did a podcast recently in Los Angeles, and he was there, and then we went out to dinner, and it was interesting to hear his reflection of me because I was enamored with his career. He's a big Hollywood producer and did, many big films. And then he's very interested in my career and the direction it's going. And so I was grateful, to hear that reflection. So the bottom line is the first vision was certified health nut, was born in the Amazon, crystallized. And then I came out of the jungle and all this technology was brand new. The second one was I went down, and you just explained how you live there from Latvia and how, beautiful the people are down there and sweet. And it's just a different kind of energy. And when I met the children down there, and I don't have nieces or nephews, so I've never been surrounded by children. And so for me to be surrounded by all these children in the rainforest, these little Indian children, and I was so, oh my God, these children are so beautiful, and there I was 40, and they say you're never ready to have children. Well, at that time I was ready, right? But it took that experience of me being down there. And so during my ayahuasca ceremonies, my initial ceremonies, the spirit of my daughter came to me, a very powerful spirit. And I wasn't married. I wasn't in a relationship or anything. And in a very short amount of time, I conceived my first child, and then my daughter was the second child that came. And she is a very powerful spirit. And so my family has been unfolding ever since then. Certified Health Nut's been unfolding ever since then. The final vision I saw is that humanity makes it from the precipice of ecological disaster that we find ourselves in. We all know and have heard about the destruction of the rainforest. And now, of course, with the chemtrails and the expansion of the commercial world here, we see that we're at the precipice of ecological disaster. And so I saw that humanity makes it. And so that's been unfolding ever since. And while I share this, and so,
cool, Troy. I mean, it's a really cool story. It's a very strong start, and something similar happened to me. I was drinking ayahuasca. I was just in it to heal depression, and it just gave me this entire vision that now led me to starting the retreat, and it's pretty crazy. It didn't talk to me about the family, but my wife was already pregnant, I think, when I started drinking the medicine. Actually, no, when I first drank the medicine, she wasn't pregnant yet. So, but yeah, there's something with the medicine that a lot of times for a lot of people, like you and me, it just gives you the entire breakdown, the entire direction, and then years later, sometimes only years later, you realize like what was this all about. But it's something you mentioned that you said, we're going to make it from this cataclysm. I personally think the reason we're destroying ourselves is like a lack of consciousness, and that people are doing wrong things for the wrong reasons. So, and I personally hope that maybe if more people do all the conscious things you talk about, breathing exercises, plant medicine, maybe focus on their health, maybe we'll make it. But in your vision, how are we making it out of there? Does what needs to happen?
Well, there weren't so much specifics as just the end result of, we make it. And I also believe, on your point, that we have gone into ignorance to awaken consciousness, right? Because there's two forces guiding everything: yin, yang, inhalation, exhalation, masculine, feminine, catabolic, anabolic. There's always two forces guiding us. And so, and my mentor likes to say, how can you be Luke Skywalker if you don't have a Darth Vader, right? And so there's always, the dark side. And so it's integrating the both. And I do believe that's a big part of our dualistic paradox, our dualistic reality that we're living in. So, can you rephrase that question? Because I want to get into it. And
personally, I think that people need to wake up. Consciousness needs to wake up, and I believe like ayahuasca is one of the fastest way to do it. So, what do you think? What do you think needs to happen for us to wake up? And do you even agree? Like, do you think it comes from lack of consciousness, or just talking in that direction? It's not like a specific question.
Yeah, we go into darkness, or the Vedic scriptures, yogic scriptures that talks about the Kali Yuga, the darkness, and we hear this in astrology, or the age of Aquarius. We're going into a different cycle. The Mayan calendar talks about this. The Hopi prophecy, the eagle and the condor prophecy, talk about the dark times, and I do believe we're coming out of it. And so, however you slice it, even the president of the United States right now talked about, going into a golden era. And so, and I truly believe this, again, that we have two forces, yin and yang, and not to get political, but you always have to look at what's on the horizon as indicators. And so, I think it's interesting that the main politician on the global stage is actually talking about the golden era or the golden age. Whether it manifests or whether he's full of propaganda, only time will tell, right? And so, but we are coming out of darkness. And here's the other thing. No matter what, man has always sat around the fire and told stories. And we tell stories to inspire future generations, to make sure that they know that there's a tiger in the cave, right? Or this area is potentially dangerous, or there's a sinkhole over here, or a cenote you can fall in. So we would tell stories around the fire. Well, this is the fire right now. This technology is the fire. And the story that I'm telling, because the world that I choose to create is one of balance and harmony. I postulate as a man on this planet, and with the great responsibility, I've been gifted great power and energy and talents. And so I postulate that we can live in harmony with nature. There's a scientific term called biomimicry, which states life creates conditions conducive for life. So a spider at Aqueous Solutions, room temperature, can take things from its local environment and build something 5 times the strength of steel. And this has been replicated with coral reefs and other aspects of nature. And if we can align with biomimicry, what Tesla talked about, free energy, 0-point technology, taking abundant, wireless, free energy from the atmosphere instead of oil and destructive industries. And some of the oil exploration is one of the main culprits of deforestation and what they did to the shuar in Ecuador, Oxypetroleum and Chevron, et cetera. And so these are destructive industries. So what can we do with constructive? And maybe you've seen visions in your ayahuasca ceremonies as well, your psychedelic experiences. We can go beyond the veil of illusion of, this hard and fast ideas of physical material stagnation, and we can go beyond into the material, beyond the material into the energetics of the world is what create and coalesce energy, and sound effects matter. So can we speak it into existence sitting around the proverbial fire on these devices and speak into existence? My vision is clean air, water, soil, and equitable systems for all of mankind in my lifetime. And so what is an equitable system? Well, everyone has a fair shake to create. And so instead of this fake fiat currency derived world where the bankers fund both sides of the war to see the strife amongst the human beings. And so can we create systems that are conducive for all life on the planet? And I postulate that we can, right? Dream the impossible dream, as the Wright brothers wanted to fly like an eagle. And Steve Jobs wanted to put a handheld computer in every man's hand so that every man had the potential to change the world. So this is the potential that I see, and that I speak into existence using story, using vision. Where there is no vision, the people will perish. And so this is the story that I'm speaking into existence. And so this is the manifestation principle that I'm utilizing. Thought, word, action manifest in the flesh. And so and I like nature, and I like the natural rhythms of life. And I also like technology, right? I'm using it. So my question is can we do this in harmony? And I postulate that we can.
Yeah, whatever we can believe we can achieve. And you mentioned so many cool topics that we can delve into. Just like Steve Jobs put computers in everyone's hand, I want to put ayahuasca in everyone's mouth. I mean, almost everyone, not everyone, not if you have schizophrenia. But it's cool that you talk about, podcasts as being this bonfire where digital elders like yourself, I mean, you're close to 60 now, right?
I'll be 60 at the end of the year, yes.
Yeah, so digital elders talk to like 20,000 digital bonfires at the same time, while people are driving. But the emotion is the same, right? So using technology for good, I think is pretty cool. So you mentioned Trump, and I want to switch this topic to health. You're the health nut. Trump, make America healthy again. Robert Kennedy Jr. And I know you're passionate about this topic. Talk to us about that.
Well, I've studied geopolitics ever since I came out of the Amazon. So when I first went down there in 2006, I saw mountains of sawdust in Iquitos. So mountains of trees, sawdust. And I saw the 2x4s, which were on barges that go up to Home Depot here in the United States and other industrial parts of the world. And so I understand that, we are the problem, right? Humanity is the problem. Therefore, we are the solution. And so, so I studied geopolitics. I'm like, okay, all right, the rainforest is being destroyed. It's very important for the ecosystem. It's a critical linchpin to the rest of the world. And so what is my role as a man? I have a responsibility. That's the message I came out of the jungle with. and witnessing the destruction. And then I started to study industry, geopolitics, things that were, causing the destruction down there. And I realized that oil exploration is one of the number one deforestation components. You cut the roads through the jungle, exploring for oil deposits. And then if there are, they dig and drill, and you can create, waste like oxypetroleum did to the shuar, which caused leukemia in those tribes. And then if there isn't, then you after the bulldozers go through, then they pull out all that equipment, and then they'll give $1 a day and a chainsaw to a local, and they'll start felling the big trees that they bring through the tributaries into the major cities and cut down the rainforest, right? So and then they grow the cash crops, right? The soy, the corn for McDonald's beef, even chocolate, bananas, all these, cash crops, etc. Coca leaves, right? And so, how can we do this in a sustainable way? Well, first and foremost, don't cut it down. And I was working with an herbal company. If you harvest some of the herbs or the fruits or the berries that have very powerful medicinal qualities, they grow back, right? So that is one sustainable model. But the unsustainable models were what was depicted in a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman, which was written by John Perkins. And it details the World Bank and the IMF giving loans to these third world countries, Ecuador, Peru, Panama, Venezuela, and then asking, but then who gets the contracts for that money that is borrowed for those third world countries? Well, Halliburton and Bechtel get those contracts, right? We did this with Iraq. And so then these American corporations go in and build infrastructure, dams, roadways, grid systems for electricity. And then they ask for the money back, right? The World Bank asks for the money back. And, well, they don't have the money, right? It's a third world country. So they say, okay, give us your natural resources and a slave wage to pull it out of the earth. We see this in Africa with the cobalt and the lithium mining, the Sudan crude, Iraq. Venezuela was number 4 producer of oil. Number 5 producer is Ecuador. Number 6 producer is Peru. And number 9 producer is Libya. And we saw what happened to Libya. Pipelines are what get the oil into position so it can be exported around the world. And so Afghanistan and Syria, those are both platforms for pipelines. So this is kind of the way of the world. And I studied that. So when I saw, and I've been on the planet for 50 plus years, and then I see this guy, Donald Trump, who's a brash New Yorker, and I spent a lot of time working in the fashion industry in New York. And Donald Trump's kind of a mild New Yorker. People think he's a sexist and a racist and all this. And so I see that. I see him as a very mild person, but I see him as an American and speaking up for the American way, and I tend to believe in something better than Confessions of an Economic Hitman and the whole situation. Now that he's in, I realize the gigantic blockades with oil, which is Rockefeller's, which is banking, which is pharmaceutical drugs, which is agribusiness. So petrochemical byproducts are in pesticides and herbicides. It's what helps the chemicals stick to the plants. Petrochemical byproducts are in pharmaceutical drugs. And so you've got Rockefellers were oil men, and they created a monopoly, and they bought up the railroads. They bought up whatever was distributing the oil, and they're still doing this, right? And then they created the school system here in America as well. And they, it's designed to dumb people down and make them good factory workers. And then the Flexner report basically got rid of all natural medicine or discredited it and only put credit to state licensed, accredited universities that were teaching medicine, which was, back then, that was considered quackery. Herbal medicine is what our grandparents and our great grandparents always used. We didn't have pharmacies, hospitals, doctors, or any of this 200 years ago. So all this stuff is brand new. And if you look at the story of John D. Rockefeller and setting up those monopolies, it's basically we're living in an oligarchy, a top-down situation. In fact, J.P. Morgan was funding Nikola Tesla when he was developing free energy. And when he discovered it, J.P. Morgan buried it because Tesla didn't want to meter it, right? He wanted to give it free to the people. And so this is kind of the way of the world that I've studied. Now, not bad or good, right? Again, this is the yin and the yang that we live in this world. I just postulate that we can do things in a more balanced way. Things that we don't have to rape and pillage other lands, push people off of their land for natural resources. And I go big picture, and, please, watching at home or listening, follow along with me philosophically. And so there are only 4 human needs: food, water, shelter, and fire. And we don't need chemicals to grow food. Organics outperform GMOs and commercial farming, I think 8-1. There's been a lot of research in Asia on organic farmland. The American military did research. You can find this on the British Soil Association.org website. And so the organics outperform, and there's a huge difference in energetics in food. And Hippocrates said, "Let thy food be thy medicine." But we've gotten so far away from that. And back to the herbs, herbs are food. Herbs are medicine. It was part of who we are. And we've gotten so far away from that, and we've sold ourselves this whole top-down oligarchy situation that's all traded in the petrodollar, and people are controlled with the petrodollar. And so if you look at, you're living outside of Medellin, Netflix had a big show on Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel. He was the 7th richest man in the world. He was worth billions at a time on the Forbes list. And so, and that was all traded in the petrodollar, in the American dollar. And so, anytime there's imbalances, that leaves the door open for massive amounts of corruption. And so what I learned about that Netflix special Narcos is it's not just the narco traffickers. It is also the governments that are controlling all aspects of life: oil, pushing indigenous people off of their land, etc., raping and pillaging the land. And so the corruption runs deep. It's not just the illicit drugs, it's the legal drugs, right? Now we've got everybody is all doped up. I think 70% of Americans are on one medication or more. Chronic disease is at 50%. So bringing it back to Trump and now RFK, I believe that somebody wants to do good. I know I do. And so will these men help this planet? I would like to think that yes, they will. The proof will come out in the pudding. But the bottom line is make America healthy again. This is my platform that I've been working on for the last 20 years. You scroll back to YouTube in 2006, I'm singing the same song, talking about the GMOs, people all doped up on pharmaceutical drugs, etc., talking about oil exploration in the Amazon and plant medicine, etc. And so, and RFK is not just talking about make America healthy again and the food supply and the food diet and the glyphosate and the GMOs, et cetera. He's also talking about addiction recovery and psychedelics, ibogaine, and other exploration to help the fentanyl crisis, right? Which is manufactured from China, coming in through the cartels in Mexico. And so it's a big mess. And I truly believe if we're going to save the planet, then it's going to happen at a grassroots individual level. Healthy me equals a healthy planet. We're all voting with our dollars, regardless of the politicians we bring in. And so what are we spending our money on? Pay now, pay later, pay the farmer, pay the doctor. It's our choice. And so this is the clarion call that I'm putting out there on the internet, whether not everyone is going to heed the call. But everyone gets the call. And so I hope that ties it in. I know I tend to talk a little bit, a lot, and it gets philosophical. But I postulate that we can create peace and harmony on this planet, always and forever.
Yeah, you do talk a lot, which is a great thing for a podcast guest because I need to ask very few questions. You're very self-sufficient, and it is a scary picture. I mean, there's so many issues, but as you said, once again, you had a vision that we're gonna make it. There's a lot of good men around there. I consider myself one of them, doing good things, making world a better place, and we do have tools, and yeah. And then you've been putting out that message for a long time, and I'm sure people listen. I'm sure that helped RFK win and get to the position where he's at, because I think people are ready. Everyone knows enough, thanks to the internet, thanks to YouTube. People know enough that there's what's healthy, what's unhealthy. People are fed up enough. And speaking of RFK, I'm a big fan of him. It's my dream to interview him, and I know one day I will, because he does speak about his son drinking ayahuasca with like tears in his eyes, and it really helped him. And it's amazing. So let's switch to the more positive side of things. You're almost 60 years old. You look amazing. You're a health nut. You know a lot about health. Tell us, what did you do to stay fit? What can people do? Your favorite things to stay healthy, apart from ayahuasca, obviously.
Yes, well, I put this in my book, Ripped at 50, A Journey to Self-Love, because I have so much experience, and sometimes it's overwhelming for people. So I wanted to chunk it down into first principles, as they use in physics or science. You can't have this without that. And so we're made out of water. So hydration is very important to pay attention to. We're made of the earth materials. So nutrition is very important to pay attention to. The source of all life on planet Earth is the sun. And so we're electromagnetic beings. So sunlight and grounding is very, very important for us. These are axioms. They're first principles. They're necessities. They're non-negotiables every day. And I think in the world of biohacking and now peptides and steroids and all these synthetics that are out there, people are getting caught up on like, oh, should I do this or should I do that? And my message has always been for the last 20 years, get back to nature in as many facets as possible. So I have the 9 pillars of health, the 7 factors of stress that destroy health, and the 5 detoxification pathways that restore health. And so it's a good understanding to understand these first principles. The number one pillar that I have is legacy, purpose, or dream. Where there's no vision, the people will perish. And so it's important for man to have purpose. I do postulate that procreation is prime directive. So as I came out of the jungle, very lit up with nature inside my consciousness, my nervous system, etc., I came back with a strong desire to start a family. And so I do believe this is at the cornerstone of being a human being. And you're going to need your health to procreate. And I do believe that women, that's job number 1, to raise the children, nourish and nurture the children. So when I work with men, it's a good idea to figure out what their effortless genius is, and what they're good at, and what the world needs, right? And that's the essence of a business, to solve a problem. And to go into what you're good at instead of just getting a job. That can be problematic for a man. And so, but for women, I think job number 1 is having children. Not that a woman can't go and start a business and do whatever, anyone wants to do. I'm not here to stop that. I'm just here to say that is probably the most important job, is for the future of the species, is nourishing and nurturing the children. And I say that as a stay-at-home father, where I chose to be with my children. Luckily, as an entrepreneur, I had the ability, albeit through the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, but being available for my children the majority of the time. And so I think it's so important. So hopefully your viewers will understand that man needs purpose. And for a woman, I do believe that having children is purpose enough. And so the 9 pillars, nature, hydration, nutrition, sleep. This is non-negotiable. We're wired to the celestial realm, the moon and the sun. Movement is a necessity, not a luxury. And so walking's the best exercise. You just understanding these basic principles as we've become domesticated, sitting, driving, texting. It's a good idea to understand, all of this to live an optimal and vital life so that we actually have something to contribute to the greater parts of the world. So I put all this curriculum in my book, and then you can download it for free on my website, The 9 Pillars of Health, certifiedhealthnut.com. You can go down there and it's a free download for everyone. And you can put it up as a checklist. And so these are, again, axioms, non-negotiables, first principles, foundation principles. You can't have a great life without having all these. Or if you want a great life and you want a big vision, you're going to need your health to achieve that. And so I put that all in my curriculum.
Yeah, I see why you wrote a book. You definitely have the information just exploding out of you. It's almost hard to contain. So I have an idea. You should come to Lawara. It's a very calm place, and you can start writing your new book, which is Ripped at 60. As the time has come, it's the other stuff is outdated. So interestingly enough, I realize I'm a stay-at-home father as well, even though we all live here at the same property. And it's cool because my kids can come visit me in the office here nearby. Talking about health, I want to continue about that a little bit. I remember when I first heard about ayahuasca, I was like really negative about it. I was like, what do you mean taking drugs and puking in the jungle? Like, you must be crazy, right? And I was very skeptical. Then I slowly warmed up to it, and now I am embracing it and spreading the word. So roles have reversed. But I remember when I was getting ready for this interview, I was like, Troy's a really cool guy, and he talks about those things. But this like urinotherapy and all this stuff is a little over. Like, I felt resistance. So I want to be proactive this time and not resist stuff that I don't know. So talk to us about the craziest, the weirdest things you discovered that actually work.
Well, like ayahuasca, I hear, right? I hear, power. Oof, what is that? Tell me more. I hear about the Maori healers I talked about earlier. They use sticks and stones and they stand on you. And people scream bloody murder. Oh, really? Where? How can I sign up? When are they coming? Ayahuasca makes you puke. You see visions. Oh, where? Let me know. Oh, urine therapy. The yogis did this. It's a path to enlightenment. It's a tool in the toolbox. Oh, wow. Let me try. Let me see what happens. Paida, classical Chinese medicine that predates traditional Chinese medicine. Even acupuncture is foreign to a lot of people, sticking needles in you. I just came from acupuncture, actually. Cupping, bruising the skin, bringing the blood, bloodletting, which is also classical Chinese medicine. Paida, which, is the slapping. And so, very interesting. Heal the human body, heal my consciousness. This is a tool in the toolbox. I have pain in my body, pain in my consciousness, trauma. I wrote part of my book. I don't like to stay stuck on childhood drama or whatever. And I appreciate my parents. But, I had my fair share of challenges. And when I did research on natural childbirth, my parents were fist fighting in the womb, and the drugs that they used in the 60s and pulled me out of my mom's vagina, like knocked out cold. Like, so I did some of this research. And so, okay, where are my challenges as a being, as a man here? And so I hear things and that sounds interesting. Oh, let me explore that. Oh, that sounds interesting. Let me explore that. Oh, little death. Oh, divine, right? With the ayahuasca, your ego death, okay. I hear that. Let me experience this. This is human exploration, and I'm on a healing path to understand myself, understand the world, and And also I have my own dark side, my own shortcomings, right? And, as a father, as a man of this earth, I choose to be, you know, uh, as peaceful as possible, right? I got into alcoholism and drug addiction when I was younger because I was trying to kill the pain. And so I choose to deal with the pain, the emotions, whatever it is. And I'm still going through that at 60 years old. You think you arrive, or you think have achieved a certain level. Well, I think the Zen monks, they say, chop wood, carry water before enlightenment, and chop wood, carry water after enlightenment. And, you're still no one here gets out alive. We're still on this path. But I choose the road less traveled instead of anesthetizing myself with sugar or pornography and entertainment, which I have done my fair share of, right? Womanizing. I have done my fair share, but I choose the highest vibrational path because the downside of the upside of, let's say, drugs, for example, there's always a crash. And so how can I walk the middle path? How can I find peace and harmony as much as possible? The vicissitudes of life are always here. The ups and downs of life. My meditation teacher used to say, things in the life that you want to happen don't happen. And we have aversion to that, or things we want in life, we cling and we have craving for. And then things we don't want, we have aversion towards. And clinging and aversion and clinging and addiction and so it's like we are reacting to our polypeptides, our chemical messengers inside of our own human body, and it's like the rat race, samsara. The yogic traditions call it. And so, a big part of my goal is to stay as balanced as possible. And so stay as balanced as possible, and then also offer what I have discovered in human exploration out to another brother and sister that may be going through the same thing as me. And so I'm here to offer the olive branch. Many years ago, I had problems with my digestion. Okay, I studied fasting, herbal medicine, juicing. I got some really good results on this. And so, hey, brother, you're going through some problems? Hey, try this, right? This worked for me. And maybe it'll work for you. Maybe it doesn't. Okay, throw it away. Do like Bruce Lee. Take study with everyone. Take what's useful, discard the rest, make it your own. Right? You can learn quickly from someone who's living a life that you don't want to live. You recognize, okay, I learn. All right, compartmentalize that. And then take what's useful and make it your own. And so you're a walking Tai Chi, you're a walking Qigong going through this world as we're going through entropy and our tissues are solidifying, right? We come out as a baby. We're all children of God. We're all spiritual beings on this journey. And so how much can I learn? And how much can I balance through this learning? And then how much can I share for that, my fellow brother and sister, and bring more balance, peace, and harmony to the world? And I also postulate, Sam, that, hey, maybe this is just my own big little ego trip, right? And so maybe this is life. You got to deal with a bunch of bullshit, and then life is also beautiful on many other levels, right? And this is the life, the vicissitudes and the ups and downs. But I follow all the ancient sages, and they say walk the middle path, and this is part of the middle path. Drinking your own urine or practicing some ancient classical Chinese healing methodology, these are just tools in the toolbox to discover who you are, just like ayahuasca is. And I mean, ultimately, we are all God creators. We are all imbued with the power of the creator. And I think Jesus, that's the story of Jesus, right? There is no ultimate death, right? He was crucified. And then 3 days later, he comes back like, ain't nothing happened to me. I'm walking free, right? And so, and I do believe that there is somewhat of a revolving door. There is no death ultimately. We are going through different dimensional transitions. And how aware can your soul, your spirit, how aware can your soul be transitioning from one dimension to the next? I've been to the spirit world with these powerful psychedelics, and I've come back, and so I like to postulate that we're always there. It just depends on how aware you are in all dimensions, all places, at all times. How aware are you? And we're in the physical realm, right? We're in this physical body, in this physical realm. So it seems so dense. The emotions, the energy and motion seems so intense. The neck pain and back pain, which is emotional pain, which is our mental defilements solidified into our body.
We got to keep an open mind and not judge too soon. And as you say, Bruce Lee said, take a bit of everything from everywhere and just learn. You talk about ego as well. I also sometimes think, I'm crazy that I even try, and it's definitely an ego trip. But I think you do need to have a bit of ego to believe in yourself, to sort of strive for bigger things. So I think there's a lot of positive to our ego. You mentioned digestion.
And I think there's a lot of spiritual bypassing in the spiritual community that, like, you got to kill your ego. There's yin and yang. You need the ego to get out of bed in the morning. And so, and if you're a man walking in this earth and you're like, I feel responsible for the future of this planet and what's to come. And so, and I want to participate in that. And so you're going to need an ego. Otherwise, you're just a leaf in the wind, right?
Yeah, I'm a leaf. I'm a leaf in the wind with a little bit of ego, like trying to combine the best of the both worlds. But yeah, so I definitely don't hate my ego, but I try to limit the negative negative parts of it. So you mentioned digestion. For me personally, I was struggling with digestion issues a lot, and then they kind of magically went away when I started drinking ayahuasca, even though it was not the main thing for me because of the purging and all this stuff. And it brings me to last question to you today is, I really love your explanation of ayahuasca. Like, I've seen one video of you at the beach and you really passionately for 3 minutes describe ayahuasca. Can you do it for us? Even though I'm sure people know by now, but still I just like your version of it.
Well, and I have to give a big shout out to my mentor, the great gringo shaman down in the Amazon, Scott Peterson, and I made a lot of videos with him. And one of my very first videos on a digital camera, this was before these phones came out. It was a Sony digital camera. And I think I have it somewhere on the internet. But I like to explain it to him almost verbatim because he was such a coherent voice with the medicine, and I learned immense amounts of knowledge from him. So Scott Peterson used to like to explain it like this. Ayahuasca is the most powerful herbal medicine on planet Earth. It penetrates the liver, the gallbladder, the intestines. It cleans the blood, but more importantly, it penetrates the nervous system where we hold our beliefs. It's like a system defrag. So if you were raped as a child or you were wronged or ripped off, etc., it's going to help you look at this unconscious program. Maybe it's running in the background. Maybe you have anger or some type of trauma trigger experience from and rightfully so, right? We've been wronged, etc. And so, but ayahuasca has the ability to pull this program out and help you really look at it, dissolve the veil of illusions that we have in our day-to-day life. And we put on this mask to go to work, and we put on this mask to be in our relationship, etc. And ayahuasca has the ability to take all those masks off and come down to the essence of, who and what we are, and ask ourselves, hey, this program is running. It's taking a lot of your energy. Do you want to forgive this? Do you want to let it go? Do you want to understand it? Do you want to process it? But it's sucking your life force out. And so ayahuasca is a tool that has the ability, and sometimes you're going to puke it out. Sometimes you're going to shit it out. Sometimes, a good shaman can smooth it out, right? Blow some tobacco on it and help clear the energy. Maybe some floral water, bring in the angels. And so, it's a tool in the toolbox. And that's the best way I know how to, explain the ayahuasca. And let me tell you, I have roared like a lion, puking my guts out, and gratefully so, right? And other times I have not puked, but wish I did. And so, and I've always left the jungle, more peaceful, more understanding, more powerful. If you go back to my original visions that I am living to this day and preaching exactly my experience, I think ayahuasca is the most powerful herbal medicine, the most powerful, definitely one of the most powerful spiritual tools that I have ever encountered.
Thank you, Troy. Let's wrap it up on this beautiful note. I definitely hope you come visit us sometime here at La Guaira and we can puke together and have a good time. Meanwhile, for people listening, where can they find more about you? Where can they get your book? What are your handles on socials if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, certifiedhealthnut.com. We've got plenty of resources over there for everyone, free downloads. Please get on my newsletter, and so stay up to date with me for live retreats, etc. Certified Health Nut, branded across the internet. Follow me online on your favorite platform, Certified Health Nut. And then, my YouTube channel. I mean, I've been there for 19 years now. And so I'm on YouTube as well. And so I appreciate you having me on this call. And together we're here making the world a better place.
Beautiful, beautiful. Guys, you should definitely check out Troy's videos. They're really good and really fun. And I recommend that. As I was doing this research, I enjoyed it a lot. And I've seen your videos in the past as well. Thank you guys for listening. As always, we do the host, Sam Believ, and I will see you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to support us and Psychedelic Renaissance at large, please follow us and leave us a like wherever it is you're listening. Share this episode with someone who will benefit from this information. Nothing in this podcast is intended as medical advice, and it is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This episode is sponsored by La Guaira Ayahuasca Retreat. At La Guaira, we combine affordability, accessibility, and authenticity. La Guaira, connect, heal, grow. Guys, I'm looking forward to hosting you.